This is The Speaking Show. I'm David Newman, and you're tuned in to the #1 podcast for speakers, consultants, and experts who want to speak more profitably. Welcome, everybody. My guest today is the awesome and amazing Cynthia Jai, author of Influence Through Voice. Harness the power of your voice to gain respect, establish authority, and leave an impact. Totally fantastic. Great to have you, Cynthia.
Yeah, I'm very glad to be on the show.
So your expertise is using voice and everything connected to voice, the way that we breathe, the way that we use our body, the way that we energize our voice. How did that come to be your expertise? Give me a little bit of the backstory.
Yeah, so you probably have heard the quote that we need to teach what we need to learn the most.
For sure.
Yeah, so that's how I started. And because when I just joined the workforce, that was the area that I needed to work on. And I was not heard in meetings. And so that gave me a lot of frustration. They were even telling me, Cynthia, in the meetings, can you let us talk? And I thought, what? Who the hell do you think you are? But I was saying that in my head, not to that person. And so that drove me to work on my voice. So I've learned with different teachers, with different, all kinds of areas, a lot of self-development processes. And that's where I developed my own voice. But at the moment, I didn't think that, this is the area that I'm going to use it as a career. Until that when I was doing another training workshop, which was on leadership. So there were participants asking me, how do we develop a voice that help us to sound like a leader? So that registered in my mind and thinking, wow, this is something that people are looking for. And half a year later, I decided to do something on my own, and voice was that area that came to my mind. And ever since then, it's been 9.5 years.
Wow, how about that? Yeah. So I've got your book right in front of me here. I've got pages dog-eared like a crazy person. And I just want to ask you some of these key things. And even before we started recording, I said to you that there's stuff in this book that I never even thought of. And just by way of background, some people know that might be listening and some people don't, that I have a theater background. Yes. So I have an undergraduate and a graduate degree in theater. I actually wasn't an actor. I was a director, but I still took acting classes and voice classes and vocal technique and all of these things. I guess the first question, just from my personal experience, people say to me, David, you have a great voice. And this is partly DNA and it's partly not DNA. But I guess the question is, and you have a great voice as well, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm sure you get that comment a lot also. Is this something that we're born with, or is this something that anybody can develop given some of the techniques in your book?
Yeah, that's a great question to start, because this is one of the most asked questions that I get, that people ask me, you're a voice coach? Can we really change our voice? And yes, so since then, I also tell people, they ask me, what do you do? I said, I change your voice. And the voice, some people were born with a great voice, like David, you. And there are other people that they developed their voice. So just like me, I developed my own voice. So everyone can develop their voice. There is potential in their voice.
And you also, in the first chapter, you just cut right into this big metaphysical concept, which is you are your voice. Talk about that and how that is the entree into everything that comes after.
Yes, because the voice is like our fingerprint. It is your voice print. It is unique. So even though sometimes we can mimic other celebrities, but when you listen carefully to the voice that you're mimicking, there is still a difference. So you cannot become another person. The voice is a vibration. This vibration is very susceptible to everything that is happening inside of your body, like our physical condition, our mental condition, our emotional state. So those all affect the quality of your voice. And because we're so different, everyone's physical state is different, emotional, mental state is different. So that's why that when you listen to the voice, you can tell who that person is. And also you can tell what kind of personality they may have. And that's why that you are your voice. And if you want to elevate yourself, then you want to elevate your voice.
I was going to ask you about that next, actually, about your voice is your personality, because that's another section in the book. People look at someone like me, and I have a big personality, and they associate being a good speaker with having a big voice. And it just so happens that I have a big personality, I have a big voice. And so people say, well, David, you come across so enthusiastic and so energetic. And what I tell people as a total non-expert in this is enthusiasm comes in 100 different flavors. Just because my personality is big and bold and, out there, that doesn't mean that you have to be big and bold and out there to be perceived as an authority, to be perceived as likable, to be perceived as an expert. Can we debunk a little bit of that mythology that you have to have a big booming voice and every speaker has to have a big booming voice, and if they can't find that, then they're not good vocally?
Yeah, that is something that I cannot agree more with, because I do have clients who also came to me saying that, oh, I saw that speakers need to be dynamic, need to be in this way. That is powerful. I said, powerful, like what you're saying, enthusiastic. Being enthusiastic can come in different forms and shapes. So when we are developing the voice, we are finding the inner power in you. So for you, maybe that for some people, maybe the inner power is the enthusiasm, is the dynamic. But for some people, is this kind of inner strength. This inner strength could be strong determination, the resilience. And that is something that we want to develop. From developing that, you will find your own authoritative voice. So everyone, as speakers, everyone is an authority in their field. And we need to find your way of expressing that. And that is something can be developed through your voice and knowing your personality.
Let me just take a quick detour, because I'm looking at the clock and you and I are recording this at around 9 a.m. Eastern time. In my mind, I'm thinking, if I were traveling and if I were giving a keynote at 9 a.m. and I woke up sort of late today, usually I wake up around 5 a.m., but today I woke up around 7. I wake up at 7, keynote is at 9. What should I be doing in those 2 hours between when I wake up first thing in the morning, groggy, froggy, dry? Are there some exercises, some techniques, or some things that you recommend as a morning routine if we're speaking at 8:30 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. on the road?
Okay. So the first thing is, even before you get up, the day before, what I recommend is have enough sleep, because sleeping plays a very important role in our voice. And so that's the first thing that I recommend people do. And in between the time when you wake up and before the time that you have your keynote, what you can do is the second one. They sound like they have not much to do with voice, but it is very important. So the second thing is drink a lot of water. So I see you're drinking water, which is great. So have enough sleep, drink a lot of water. And then the third thing is, so this is something that people will not need to do in the future. When I say that, most people would get surprised, because for me, I also give speeches. Before my speeches, I never do any exercise. And this is built on everything about voice that you have developed into a habit. For example, there's breathing, the proper breathing. If the proper breathing has become a habit, if the proper projection, proper resonance have been developed, then you don't need any of those exercises. So I just woke up 14 minutes ago, and so I didn't do any exercises, and you wouldn't feel anything in my voice. All I did was the first two things. One was having enough sleep. 2, have enough water. And 3, if proper breathing, projection, resonance have not been developed in the speakers, what they need to do is they can do some exercises to warm up their voices. There are some very simple exercises to help them warm up the voice. One is fluttering, lip fluttering, with some scales up and down, like this one. Take a breath in, and then when you breathe out, you do. So in this way, you wake up your voice, because after a nice sleep, some people, the voice was also sleeping. And when they wake up, the voice is still in sleeping state. So this is what they can do, lip fluttering. The other one, if especially adults. The older we get, the more difficult people will find to do this exercise. And if they find the lip fluttering is difficult, what they can do is very simple. Everyone can do that, which is humming. They can hum any songs or any tunes on their way from bedroom to the bathroom. So it's take a breath in, and then when we breathe out, we do. So these are 2 quick exercises to help them wake up the voice.
Totally fantastic. Hey, this interview is a real moneymaker. If you're serious about ramping up your reach and revenue as a speaker, trainer, or expert, book a confidential speaker strategy call with our team. The link is doitmarketing.com/call. It will be the most valuable 45 minutes you invest in your speaking-driven business. Speaking of value, let's get back to the show. I want to go back into the personality aspect because you're connecting, and rightly so, you're connecting our vocal quality with our level of influence. And you have some great questions in the book. And I'm wondering, how do we get the answers to these questions? Because they're not always about us. So I'm just going to read a couple of these. How does your voice sound to others? What impact does it bring to others? Does your voice draw people in or drive people away? Does your voice work for you or against you in both your professional and personal life? You would have to be pretty self-aware to answer some of these questions. So how can we tell if our voice is working for us or against us? What kind of behavior, what kind of things should we be observing as we're talking to people or speaking or coaching or consulting with our clients?
Yes. So in order to know that, the first thing you have pointed out, which is awareness. When they develop the voice, awareness is the key. They need to have a lot of awareness. And second one is, how do they start to form this kind of impression on their own voices? And this is something that they are probably going to hate to do. And a lot of people would be hating this, which is to record and have the courage to listen to the recording. So that would be the first thing, that you listen and then record, and you record and then listen. And when you listen, you not only listen to your voice, but also listen to other people's response. So that would be the second thing to do. And the third, of course, that go ask the people, whoever is listening to you. So go ask them. And if they're not giving you direct feedback, sometimes you can also observe when you're speaking to a group, you're observing that what kind of impression impact that I'm creating. When I'm starting off my speech, how are they responding? So that would be a few things that they can do to start to form this impression and also impact that they create.
I'll tell you a quick funny story, and this is a growing, developing area, I think, for all of us, and me included. I was going to buy something, right? So I'm the customer, and I'm calling the salesperson back, and the salesperson is picking up the phone. And I say, is this Jim? Yeah, this is Jim. Hey, Jim, it's David Newman calling back. And immediately he says to me, what do you want? And I'm like, Jim, I'm calling back about the thing that I want to buy. And he goes, oh, David, I am so sorry. You sounded like a salesperson. So I'm the buyer and the guy's blowing me off, thinking that I'm some cold calling stockbroker going, hey, Jim, how are you? What's going on? Hey, you want to buy some stocks and bonds? Okay. So we have these bad caricatures of what a salesperson sounds like, or what a consultant sounds like, or what a professor sounds like, right? Professors dry, boring, dull, monotone, right? And a salesperson talks like this because they're completely artificial. Yeah. And it sounds like we're listening to late night radio or TV commercials. So that's a piece of self-awareness that I'm getting. Like when I'm a buyer and people mistake me for a sleazy salesperson, I got a problem. Is there such a thing as sounding too polished and too slick? And are there times where if we've worked on our voice and we've mastered a few of these components, maybe we dial it back and we almost sort of pretend that we're not quite as confident as perhaps we are by doing things like pausing or changing our tone or coming in a much less threatening sort of way?
Okay, yeah. So there is something that people can do with that. But the key is that we are always developing a voice that is authentic. So you will be able to develop a voice that is authentic to you. The only difference is that when you are talking to different people, you want to think about what is my intention on this call and how do I want them to feel. So those two questions will help you still be you, but achieving different effects. So when you're talking over the phone and don't want to sound like a salesperson, then beforehand, maybe we're thinking, oh, my intention is blah, blah, blah. And how do I want them to feel is, I want them to feel that they are the best. I am buying something from them. So these two questions will help you achieve different effects.
So just like we plan out our words, hopefully we think about what's the outcome of this call with our communication.
Yes.
What's the outcome of this call as far as the way that we show up vocally?
Yes. And then when you're thinking about your intention and the feeling that you want them to have, how do you do that with the voice? And one of the key things to do in the voice is the breath. When we are enthusiastic, most of the times we're using a lot of breath. But when you want to sound calm, you're probably not using a lot of breath.
Let's talk about some common vocal problems. I love this list that you have in the book. We have trembling voice in presentations.
Yes.
We have sounding young, sounding really young and using this kind of voice. And, there are women that do that. There's
right.
And you talk to them in some other context and their voice isn't like that. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, sure. No. Speaking fast,
yes,
especially when we get nervous, nasality, and people go, oh, I have a nasal voice.
Yes.
I'm sure there's some ways that we can compensate at least somewhat for that. Purposely lowering your voice, mumbling, being too soft, being too sharp and shrill, being too loud.
Yes.
How do we sort of diagnose which of these, with the self-awareness, obviously, but are there some that are easier to fix, or are there some that take more focus and conscientiousness?
So in a way, all are easy to fix. And the key is they must do the work. They must practice it. So if they're practicing it on a regular basis, they will be able to see the changes. So for my clients, usually it takes about 6 months. 6 months, they can see the changes in their voices. And
so we can even fix things like being like the professor voice that I mentioned a moment ago, that monotone, not everyone is permanently doomed to having a monotone vocal presentation.
No, or the engineer voice. So some of my clients, they are engineers and they are also speaking with a monotone. So it can be fixed. They can become more expressive, but they're still themselves.
So you mentioned breathing a couple of times. There's an entire chapter in the book that breath is really the life force. It's our life force, obviously, to keep us alive, but it's also the life force behind your voice and maybe even behind your personality. What are some breathing mistakes? And then what are some breathing exercises that can help us get more in touch with the proper way to be breathing for our own benefit?
Okay. So breathing, I would talk about the first biggest mistake that people will think, oh, when I'm nervous, now let me practice the proper breathing. So if you're nervous, then you practice the proper breathing, that will be too late. And so instead that you want to start to practice the proper breathing today and form the proper breathing a habit. When you do that, then when you're nervous, you will be able to use the breath to help you manage the nervousness. So the key is to practice the proper breathing and make it a habit. So in order to make it a habit, we need to change the way your body has been breathing. And in order to change that old pattern, we need some intensive exercises to help you change the pattern and form a new pattern in the body. And one of the exercises that I do with my client is called Kung Fu breathing. So I gave the breathing this name because it's like the Kung Fu. When we're doing the Kung Fu, it's like, ha, and it's not ha, which is wrong. And to do that, because the proper breathing, first step I want to know is the proper breathing. When we breathe in, the stomach should come out. When we breathe out, the stomach should go in. And most people are breathing in the exact opposite way. And to change that pattern that our body has been used to, and we need to purposely train the body, especially the diaphragm, to move properly. And the Kung Fu breathing, what we do is we're just pushing the stomach in. When we push the stomach in, the air should go out. So just slightly open the mouth, and then we push the stomach in, so the air goes out. And then because the air is out, so you will be prompted to automatically take a breath in. So let me demonstrate it. And then the air will come back. your stomach is coming out, and then you continue, push it. So you do 3 times pushing. But every time, after every push, there should be air going in, stomach come out.
Super quick commercial break. Isn't this interview amazing? If you'd like to get more ideas on how to start or grow your speaking business fast, pop over to our free training at doitmarketing.com/webinar. So the way that I've heard this described before, and it's a metaphor because it doesn't really happen, but it's think about filling your belly with air. Right? So you're breathing, obviously you're breathing and the air is going into your lungs, but that's what you say is that belly goes out when we breathe in. And then when we do that energetic kung fu exhalation, then the diaphragm goes in because that's what gives us the force and the energy behind our voice.
Yes. So what we are really doing when we push the stomach, what we're really doing is we are pushing the diaphragm because we cannot directly control how the diaphragm moves.
Right. And you also mentioned in the book, there's a couple of different exercises. So grounding exercises, what to do with the jaw, what to do with the lips, the tongue, the neck, the shoulders, even whole body exercises that help energize your voice. What are a couple of your favorites there?
Oh, so my favorite, which I also do every day, is called rolling forward. Rolling forward, which is to help you release the tension from your neck all the way to your lower back. Because this is where that we are creating the breathing, the resonance. And so that exercise is that we stand upright, relaxed, and then we take a breath in. When we breathe out, we are slowly bend forward until that you feel your back, your lower back is being stretched. But the purpose is not to touch the floor. So some of my students, they'll be trying to touch the floor and then they are kind of straining their muscle. So the purpose is to relax. So that's the exercise that I do on a daily basis. And especially for speakers, because we are standing all the time. And this exercise will really help you to release the tension on the back and lower back.
Yeah, no, that's a great exercise. And it's obviously important not to do that so that you're straining yourself, but I've tried that exercise. It is very relaxing and it feels great when you do it the right way.
Yeah. And the reason I am listing so many exercises is because that the best voice comes from the most relaxed body.
Yeah, huge. I love what you're saying about practice this when you are relaxed so that when it's showtime and you're not relaxed and there's 100 different things going through your mind, a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety, then you can practice it the right way, having practiced it when you were relaxed.
Yeah, that's right.
Dig your well before you're thirsty.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about resonance, because I think resonance is something that people think they're either born with or not, like some of these other things we've talked about. Yeah. And you have this great analogy and metaphor in the book about a tuning fork. Yes. So how does resonance work? And then what's the tuning fork analogy that people should be aware of?
Yeah, so most people have heard of the tuning fork, but didn't know that how the tuning forks are working, especially when there are 2 of them. And also, people are not really aware what resonance is. So when I ask my students, I said, what is resonance? And they would always say, it's echo. So echo is sound bouncing back. And resonance is not sound bouncing back. Resonance is that these 2 tuning forks, let's say that you have identical 2 tuning forks. And what we're going to do is we're going to strike A. And when we strike A, you will hear the vibration. And vibration is sound. So when you strike A, you hear sound coming out of A. So what you're going to do next is you're going to mute A or move A away. So you may think that, oh, the sound will stop. But interestingly and surprisingly, that you actually hear the sound continues. And when you listen carefully, the sound comes out of B. You say, what? I didn't do anything to B. Why would B vibrate or make sound by itself? The reason is when 2 things are identical, they are having the exact same best vibrational point. And when you strike one, the other one will start to vibrate by itself because they are in the same frequency. And the vibration comes out of B is called resonance. And if we give it an explanation or a definition, we can say that the B's vibration is supplementary vibration. And the vibrational source comes out of B. So that's resonance, supplementary vibration. Or in physical terms, if some people are logical, they really want to know the physical term, and it is called sympathetic vibration coming out of B. Sympathetic vibration is resonance.
And you also connect resonance with the perception of authority and the perception of influence. How does that tend to play out?
Because when we are developing more vibration, more resonance, that the voice quality will be changed. The quality will become fuller. The voice is fuller and the voice will be richer. At the same time, when you develop more vibration in your body, these vibrations, they are going to realign your own vibrational frequency. So your vibrational frequency is changed. You become more aligned. You become more authentic. And a fuller voice with a better vibrational frequency, that is actually unconsciously that registered in our mind as authoritative, as credible.
It's like the lion, right? The king of the jungle has that beautiful, deep, rich, resonant voice. One thing you talk about in the book that I have never heard of, and I'm not even sure I would recognize, is vocal fry. What is vocal fry?
So I'm glad that you pointed out because it can happen to many people, and many people probably are frying their vocals and they don't know. Vocal fry is that this is one of the most common situations where then most people are trying to finish one sentence in one breath, and at the end they don't have much air left, and then they still continue to speak. Now, this is the vocal fry. So that's what happens. And you really can hear that a lot nowadays, not just in young people, but in our mature adults, mature professionals.
And so we lose authority because things sort of trail off, or we lose our power at the end of that sentence when we don't have the proper breath control.
Yes, because now the breath is not supporting your voice anymore. Our voice is supported by breath. So when you don't have the air to support, this is how it sounds like. Then you don't have enough power in your voice.
Now, I want to talk about the opposite problem for a minute, which tends to be my problem. And when I read this, I was like, oh, I have to ask Cynthia about this one. Project volume properly without shouting to sound authoritative. So I'll tell you the quick backstory on this. Obviously, we're doing this podcast. I'm shouting into the microphone. I do webinars. I do videos. My wife, who is sometimes home and hears me, she says, honey, why are you shouting? I said, I'm not shouting. I'm doing a webinar. It's like, why are you shouting? I'm not shouting. I'm doing a Facebook Live. So we now have this joke in my house that I make my living with professional yelling. Professional yelling is what I do. I will sometimes listen to recordings and webinars and I'll say, oh my God, I was yelling that whole time. I wasn't teaching, I was yelling. So this is an area where I need some help. And Cynthia, we're just going to do some coaching right here on the podcast. What are some techniques where you can still project authority and not necessarily yell for an hour straight?
So before we talk about the techniques, one of the kind of the best examples that people can have or image that people can have is the voice that some of my clients wanted the most, and the voice of Morgan Freeman's.
That's great. Morgan Freeman voice.
Yeah. So I asked them, I said, okay, why do you want to have a voice like Morgan Freeman's? They said, because he sounds very authoritative, but at the same time, he's very pleasant. You can still project your voice, but without so-called shouting or yelling. And the key is to develop the resonance in your voice. Because resonance, as you mentioned, is supplementary vibration. And when you have more vibration in your body, in your voice, the volume will be increased by itself. So that's what we do.
So should we watch a lot of Morgan Freeman movies just to get up to speed on that?
Oh, no, because you can have your own so-called Morgan Freeman's voice. And the key is to work on your own body.
Let's talk about, was it a couple more things here as we start to wrap up? You've got a section in here which is very appealing to many speakers and trainers and consultants. Never, ever lose your voice.
Yes.
I lose my voice almost regularly, about twice a year. And sometimes I get a cold and it's a winter thing, but sometimes it's in the middle of summer and it's for no good reason. How can we start to put some techniques in place where we will never, or at least far fewer times, lose our voice?
Yeah, so it's, again, as we mentioned, that one is you need to develop the proper breathing and make it a habit. Only when it becomes a habit, then you will not lose your voice. Because I have students who are yoga teachers. We may think, oh, yoga teachers, they can breathe. But the problem is that they can breathe properly when they want. The problem is it's not a habit. So for some speakers, you may also be able to breathe properly, But the problem is, it's not a habit. So you need to develop it into a habit. And then you need to develop the resonance. Because the reason you're losing the voice, especially sometimes as speakers, that we get enthusiastic and we start to use a lot of effort or unnecessary effort. So the unnecessary effort comes from the vocal cords. So when you use that, you will tend to lose your voice. And you can still get enthusiastic, but now you have the body resonance to help you convey that. In that case, you reduce the strain on your vocal cords.
Right. And that's about speaking from your diaphragm instead of speaking from your throat. Right.
Yes.
So the power plant is the proper breathing and all the physiology that you just shared. The power plant is not in your throat and in your vocal cords.
Yes. So, or what I say is speaking from your body.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So I've got two final questions for you. The final question is how can people get more of you, Cynthia, and your website and any resources that you'd like to share? But before we get to that question, if people were to take one central theme or concept away from our conversation today, what would you hope that would be?
My hope would be that when you want to project a powerful voice, dynamic, enthusiastic voice, don't use more effort. Instead, use less effort, be more relaxed. Because as we mentioned, the best voice comes from the relaxed body. So that's what I want to have people remember, because this is also something people always thought otherwise.
For sure. All right. So the book, we've already said, is Influence Through Voice. And Cynthia, how do people get connected and stay connected to you? And we're going to put all of these things in the show notes and links and anything else you'd like to share. So where should we direct people for more great advice?
So the best way for them to find more free resources is on my YouTube channel. So I have over 130 videos on my YouTube channel. And a few days ago, we just hit 20,000 subscribers.
Hey, very nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So that's where they can learn from that videos, because each video is about 3 to 5 minutes talking about something about voice. And the other way is, if they want to grab a copy of the book, they can go to Amazon and Google the title of the book, Influence Through Voice, and then Cynthia. Just Cynthia will do. They will find the book.
Awesome. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We have to have you back because there's so much that we didn't even get to talk about in the book, and completely awesome. Everyone's going to be listening in. Go to the show notes page at thespeakingshow.com. Grab all of Cynthia's resources. Definitely get a copy of the book. Definitely subscribe to her YouTube channel. Maybe we'll get you to 30,000 subscribers here.
Yes.
Let's keep on going with that. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Speaking Show. Hey, tell you what, if you like us, rate us and review us on iTunes. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Go grab the notes and downloads and extras at thespeakingshow.com. See you next time.